Hi, I'm Rebekah Fraser, the founder of the Back to Work Coach. Today, my husband and I, Mark, are going to talk to you about our experience of my transitioning back to work. We're both going to talk to you about our experiences of that and also give you, our biggest pieces of advice in terms of handling that yourself. So I went back to work pretty early after Libby was born. I think she was coming out 4 months old, and I was offered a part-time contract. And it was funny sort of a situation because I really had no intention of saying yes, but did, and I guess that was my instinct. That was my true self, wanting to get back to work. So my biggest challenges were a lack of confidence. That was really the first thing that hit me. I felt as if I didn't really know how to do what I was so used to doing anymore, and so I had a crisis of confidence, I suppose. The other challenge that I faced, or that we faced, was finding childcare for Libby. She was young, and I wasn't working regularly, so it was that was quite stressful for me as well. But it was probably when my work increased and I was working more and more that we felt the biggest strain in terms of the dynamic within our family, and realised that we had to make some changes. So that was really the biggest, the moment when the transition kind of had the biggest impact. Yeah. So what from your point of view, how did my getting busier with work impact on you and the family?
To start with, when it was quite part time, no big deal really. The change happened as the workload increased, and I didn't anticipate that there would be a change on me.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was working full time, obviously, and I kind of just wanted to continue to do and operate in a way, either explicitly or subconsciously, just to continue to operate the way I was. And the benefit of hindsight, I was slow to make the adaptation to the demand that was being placed on you, but also on us as a family, so that we could team up on it.
And to be fair on you, I wasn't aware of it either. So I was continuing to try and do everything that I'd always done, plus deal with my work, and I wasn't actually aware that I basically had 2 jobs. And so I was just trying to do more within the time that I had, and getting more stressed out and getting angry about it, but I didn't stop and think, right, what's happening here? And once I sort of worked that out, then we could have a talk about it and make some changes. But to start with, it was just this thing that was happening.
Yeah, and it was sort of like it crept. So because it started low and it sort of built over a period of time, over a couple of years.
Yeah.
It wasn't until we almost got to a point, not quite of crisis, but going, hang on, this isn't quite going very well.
Definitely grumpiness.
It was pretty grumpy, and then we took stock of how we were both operating, and that neither of us had made any adaptation on the way through.
Yeah. So what I learned about myself during that transition was that I'm not very good at asking for help. I've always been really capable at doing things on my own, and I like that. I value my independence, and it felt really vulnerable for me to have to say, oh, can you help me with things? And then I also felt really uncomfortable with this concept of helping, because we're both parents, this is both our homes, and so it was like, hang on, why do I own this? So that was a learning for me. So in order to kind of make a change on that, I had to, be aware of everything that I was taking on, everything that was in my mind, everything that I felt responsible for, and then question whether or not that was appropriate. Was that the sort of thing I wanted to keep doing? And I needed to obviously talk with Mark about that. So that was, the beginning of a change for us, was me realising everything that I was carrying the responsibility for, and then thinking, right, well, that's a lot, and actually there's 2 of us, and we're both equally invested in our family, so maybe we can both carry that load. Part of the learning for me in that was that other people do things differently to you, and I guess I already knew that, which was why I perhaps was carrying it already. I had to learn to trust Mark to do it his way and for that way to be okay. It was different to mine, but different is not worse. Different is just different. And so that was a major learning for me, and really changed my experience of being a working mum, is having your partner on board, helping out, doing it his way, but being okay with that, because he's an adult and he loves our child just as much as I do, so why wouldn't it be okay? Yeah.
Yeah, well, the challenge. One of the things I learned about for me was I've always considered myself quite adaptable to change, and in this circumstance, I didn't like the change much at all, and so I was resisting that, and I wasn't getting on board, I think, as a consequence of that. So once we identified explicitly what was occurring, then okay, maybe we can make that adaptation. But I think I'm almost embarrassed to admit that I maybe had a sort of 1950s definition of the household running, and so identifying that, when we're sort of having clicked to that, I was like, oh well, that's the expectation that I'm holding about who does what isn't equitable, not appropriate, and it's not supporting you or supporting actually us in terms of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah, and that was a real transition for us. That made a difference.
Yeah.
Was you recognising that and understanding things from my point of view, and I could feel the difference when you got involved with things. You weren't just helping me out. You were
Part of the team.
Part of the team, yeah, totally. Yeah. And so, family turned to a proper team, which was very gratifying.
Yeah.
What is our key piece of advice for other people who are going through a similar transition? For me, it would have to be recognising that you don't have to do it all by yourself. So many of the women that I talk to really are just like piling new things on. It's like, well, this is what I do now, and if I take on anything else, it's just adding more, and so they're just loading themselves up. So I guess, in reflection, it is using my learnings, and that is being aware of everything that you are taking responsibility for, and then it's having a really honest conversation with your partner and getting to an agreement in terms of what each of you will do to contribute, how you will work as a team, and trusting the other person to do what they've said they're going to do. That's probably my key learning and my key advice as a result.
Yeah, well, I think my advice, if I was giving it to anybody, would be that start with a bit more of a plan, I think, so that there's a conversation about what's going to change, or where you're trying to head together, and have a plan for how that change might be enacted, rather than the sort of the creep that occurred where gradually things changed and I didn't make any adaptation. And then I think the other thing I would say is that call it early, because it gets really hard to deal with it when everyone's
when you're
grumpy.
Emotional, yeah.
If things start getting grumpy and angry, then it's pretty hard to deal with. So really, it's not that big a deal if you take it on early enough.
And you can talk honestly about it.
Yeah.
So if any of that resonated with you, if you recognise any of your challenges in our experience, then I'd love to hear from you. You don't have to do this all on your own.